Imagine a group of activists so powerful that they could beam their propaganda directly into your brain. Now also imagine that they're so sophisticated they actually get you to pay them to do it. Unfortunately, you don't have to imagine it. It's real. It's Hollywood. As big as the internet has become, Hollywood, and here I'm talking specifically about television, is still king. Not only does it reach hundreds of millions of people with its messaging, it embeds that messaging in seemingly innocuous stories. Stories that distract us from the hardships of daily life, stories that make us feel good, compassionate, and decent. We watch TV, in other words, because we like it. And just as Americans didn't think much about the carcinogens in the cigarettes they smoked for decades, most Americans don't think much about the toxic politics in the television they watch. But those who create that content do. They spin out hour after hour of slickly produced left-wing propaganda, and they give themselves awards for doing it. They applaud each other's courage, even though all their friends think exactly as they do. I spoke with nearly 100 members of the Hollywood community when I wrote my book, Primetime Propaganda, and many of them openly admitted they inserted social justice messages into their shows. How they do it is both clever and effective. Hollywood writers, producers, directors, actors create characters we keep wanting to spend time with, then have those characters act in ways most of us would judge wrong. Then, in effect, they ask us a question. Isn't it really okay that Rachel from Friends decided to have a baby without first marrying Ross? After all, you like Ross and you like Rachel. How can what they do be bad? It hasn't always been this way. For decades, Hollywood promoted traditional American values. That changed, as did so much else in the late 1960s and 70s, when Hollywood stopped celebrating American values and started transforming them. For example, in the early 1970s, abortion was a hotly contested issue. A year before the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court case, the top-rated TV sitcom Maude featured a storyline in which the title character of the show has an abortion. The LA Times described it as a watershed moment in TV history. Why? Well, because it removed the stigma of abortion. Millions of Americans, sitting in their living rooms, saw a beloved character do something they did not approve of, and they felt sympathy. Something similar happened in the early 2000s. Vice President Joe Biden was right when he said that Will and Grace had a major impact on how Americans think about same-sex marriage. Before the hit NBC show, though most Americans had a live-and-let-live attitude toward private sexual behavior, few supported the idea of men marrying men or women marrying women. But seeing the charming and funny Will Truman live his life week after week paved the way for a much wider acceptance of same-sex marriage. Current shows like Orange is the New Black and Transparent are trying to effect the same change on the issue of transgenderism. You may think these are all good things, or that some are and some aren't. That's not my point. My point is that Hollywood has had a tremendous influence on our culture, and that influence has been all to the left side of the political spectrum. And it isn't just social issues. Chevy Chase liked to boast that he helped Jimmy Carter defeat Gerald Ford in 1976. He may be right. Week after week on Saturday Night Live, Chase portrayed Ford, probably the most athletic president in American history, as a bumbling, uncoordinated idiot. In the early 2000s, Comedy Central had a show, That's My Bush, that openly mocked the 43rd president. And of course, Hollywood despises Donald Trump. From crime dramas to the late-night comedy shows, he's relentlessly ridiculed. Somehow, Hollywood managed to take an 8-year hiatus from mocking presidents during the Obama years, but maybe that's just a coincidence. All of this programming has an effect. Scientific studies suggest that watching TV acts like a habit-forming drug. According to the market research firm Childwise, teenage boys spend 8 hours per day in front of screens, much of it consuming Hollywood propaganda. Dedicated religious parents might expose their children to 2 hours a week of religious instruction. Hands-on parents might spend 30 minutes a day discussing essential values with their kids. Hollywood gets up to 40 hours a week, every week. By all means, enjoy television. I do. But remember, the people making TV don't merely want to entertain you. They want to influence you. They want you to think like they think. And unless you're aware of what they're trying to do, chances are you will. I'm Ben Shapiro, editor of The Daily Wire for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To help keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
Participation trophies. I'm not a fan. They're bad for kids, bad for parents, bad for society. Other than that, they're okay. Don't get me wrong. I love any kind of organized competition for kids. I lived and breathed baseball, basketball, football, and soccer growing up. If there was a sport to be played, I played it. And never once did anybody ever tell me that winning was not important or that showing up was all that mattered. But today, kids get a different message. Losing, no big deal. Showing up, that deserves a trophy. Wow, what an awful thing to tell a kid. Glad my parents or coaches never said it to me. If they had, I'm sure I never would have become a pro soccer player. Let me tell you why. In high school, I was a good soccer player. I thought I could play soccer in college. Looking back, though, I just wasn't good enough in those college coaches' eyes. I tried out for the UCLA team as a walk-on. I made it. I was vindicated. I had arrived on the bench. The coach hardly ever looked at me. I'm not even sure he knew my name. I know he didn't care about my feelings. I wanted to be a starter. I wanted to be a winner. Shouldn't I have been satisfied just for making the team? Of course not. That's absurd. But isn't that what kids are told today? You're a winner, even if you're not. Even if you come in last, and we'll give you a trophy, just for showing up, just for participating. This belief that showing up is an accomplishment is self-destructive, because the pain of losing is part of what drives one to improve. The frustration of going to game after game and sitting on the bench drove me nuts. I had to practice more. I had to work harder. Or I had to give up. And I didn't want to give up. This taught me an important lesson. If you don't put in the work, you won't get ahead. And not getting ahead, well, that feels awful. So put in the work or go home. So I put in the work. I pushed myself not to do my best, because who can possibly know what their best is, but to be better and better. And one day my chance came. Coach put me in the game, not because I wanted so badly to play, but because he needed me. I played well enough to start the next game where I scored a goal and had an assist. After that, I started every game. The road to victory in sports, in business, in life, is paved with losses, painful losses, losses that can hurt so much it's hard to breathe. Any professional athlete or successful entrepreneur will tell you that's true. But participation trophies, everybody is the valedictorian, and let's all pat each other on the back awards communicate a different message. They tell you that losing doesn't matter. It matters. They tell you that competition is, at best, not important, and at worst, dangerous. I wonder how my soccer career would have turned out if I'd grown up with these ideas in my head. I was cut twice during the tryout period for the 1992 Olympics. My pro soccer team, the LA Galaxy, lost 3 times in the championship before we finally won in 2002. Guess what? I survived all these disappointments and a whole lot more. They only made victory that much sweeter. In the real world, you're rewarded for achievement, not effort. Promotions don't go to the employees who did their best. They go to the employees who did the best. But what if the kids can't handle losing? What if it's too painful? That's the whole point. It's your job as the adult, as the parent, to help them understand that losing, that not getting what they want, is a part of life. Nobody likes to fail, but it's inevitable, and it's the only path ultimately to success. Yes, showing up and participating is important. Trying your best is important, but neither deserves a trophy. If you want one of those, go win something. I'm Kobe Jones for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. Please consider supporting PragerU so they can continue to reach millions of young viewers online.
Small businesses are the engine of the American economy. There are 29 million of them, and they provide employment for roughly half the U.S. workforce. Through innovative products, dedicated employees, and strong community roots, these entrepreneurs are responsible for 2/3 of all job creation. That's a lot of jobs. But high taxes and intrusive government regulation can eat away at budgets and hurt their ability to raise wages or hire new people. In fact, small business owners say that high federal tax rates are their #1 concern. Most small businesses, 95% of them in fact, are taxed through the owner, which means these businesses are subject to federal tax rates that can reach 40%. Small businesses structured like this are commonly referred to as pass-throughs. Imagine 40 cents out of every new dollar earned going to the government. In any other circumstance, theft on this level would not be tolerated. Why is it for small businesses? Significant tax cuts for these small enterprises would turbocharge the U.S. economy. According to a recent poll of small business owners, a majority of respondents would use the financial savings from tax cuts to invest back into their businesses. This means hiring more people, raising wages, and expanding operations. By energizing America's entrepreneurial spirit through small business tax cuts, America's middle class can experience greater job security, higher wages, and a more vibrant Main Street.
If you're counting on Social Security to finance your retirement, you're in for a big surprise, and not the good kind. Let me give you 2 reasons why. 1, Social Security is going broke. And 2, even if it weren't going broke, it couldn't possibly cover the cost of a decent retirement. Let's look at these 2 reasons in a little more detail, and then I'll propose a solution. Social Security is going broke. When this government program was set up in 1935, the average life expectancy was 60, but you couldn't collect your first check until you reached 65. In other words, most people didn't live long enough to receive Social Security. And most of those who didn't collect it for very long. Today, the average lifespan is 79. So now, most people do live long enough to receive Social Security for 10 or 20 or even 30 years. Here's another important piece of information. When the program started, the ratio between worker and retiree was 159 to 1. That means for every 1 person drawing benefits, 159 were paying in. Today, the ratio is 2.8 to 1. You get that? We've gone from 159 workers supporting every retired person to fewer than 3 workers supporting every retiree. And it's going down. You don't need an advanced math degree to figure this one out. Social Security is spending more than it's bringing in. Far more. Its own Board of Trustees has said that it will be bankrupt within 20 years. That doesn't mean it won't exist. It means that either the government will pay you less than it promised, or it will have to raise taxes to make up the shortfall. Most likely, both. Sounds about right for an entitlement program, doesn't it? Starts out small, but just keeps growing and growing until it collapses under its own weight. But let's indulge in a fantasy and say that Social Security is perfectly designed, perfectly balanced, and efficiently run, and that you would get every dollar you were promised. You'd still have a major problem if that's all that you're relying on. To illustrate, in 2017, the average monthly Social Security check was a little over $1,400. That's under $17,000 a year, barely above the poverty line for a 2-person household. Do you really want to live at the poverty line in retirement? Why in the world would you plan for that? But sadly, many people are. According to a recent study, 53% of unretired baby boomers have no retirement savings. That means they're planning to rely on Social Security for their retirement income. That's them. Don't let it be you. Here's the right way to prepare for retirement. First, get on a budget. I don't care if you're 55 or 25. I don't care if you're making $400,000 a year or $40,000 a year. You need to have a plan for your money. I love motivational speaker John Maxwell's line that a budget is simply telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. That means knowing, before the month starts, where every dollar you make is headed. Whether it's the mortgage or rent, or groceries, or a car payment, or whatever, you need to give every dollar an assignment. Second, attack and avoid debt like the plague. Most Americans spend 25% of their income paying off debt. Imagine how much money you could save if you didn't have this albatross around your neck. Well, actually, you don't have to imagine. Again, it's simple math. A 30-year-old investing $500 a month in an investment fund with a 6% annual return will have over $1 million by the time he's 70. So make a plan to get rid of your debt for good. I like the snowball method. List your debt smallest to largest, putting every extra dollar you have toward the smallest while making minimum payments on the rest. Once the smallest is paid off, roll that payment into the next smallest, and do this until all of your debt is paid. Finally, put Social Security in perspective. Anything you get from it should be considered a fringe benefit, icing on the cake, not the cake itself. There's nothing wrong with getting Social Security checks. After all, you earned it by contributing to the system all those years. But there is nothing secure about Social Security. The last thing you want to do is rely on it. If you do, well, good luck. I'm Chris Hogan for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. As a nonprofit, PragerU relies on donations from viewers like you. To help support PragerU, please consider making a donation.
I am an Arab. I am a Muslim, and I love my country. In fact, I'm prepared to die for it, which is why I serve in its army. I don't have to do this. I want to do this, because my country is a special place, unlike any other, free, diverse, vibrant. Yet other countries not so free, not so diverse, call for my country's complete destruction. The moment my country lets its guard down, it will be destroyed. My country is Israel. I grew up and still live in a small village named after my family's Bedouin Arab tribe. Our roots in this land run deep. In 1948, when Arab armies invaded the new state of Israel, my family thought of leaving our village. Some of them did. But when the Jewish leaders heard that, they implored us to remain. This is our country. For both Arabs and Jews, they said, stay and we will work together to build it. My family stayed, my parents were born here, made their lives here, started their own family here in Israel. In 2002, I was a teenager. It was a violent time. Palestinian suicide bombers were blowing up Israeli civilians, a danger to Arabs and Jews alike. Israeli troops entered the West Bank to stop them at their source. As a result, many Palestinians were killed. I was torn. Whose side was I on? Israelis or the Palestinians? Is it possible to be an Arab and an Israeli? The question became even more difficult when I saw men from my own village wearing the uniform of the Israeli army. Only Jews are required to serve in the military. No one forced these Arab men to join. They chose it. Why? I asked them. Our home is here in Israel, they said. Our home is under attack. Our neighbors in this home are Jews. They are being attacked. We fight together. Still, I struggled. I went to high school in Nazareth. There, unlike the village where I grew up, most of the Arab students identified as Palestinian even though they are citizens of Israel. Some of the students, my friends, hated Israel. They couldn't understand me. You're a Palestinian, they said, so you must hate Israel. When I said that I didn't, that we had far more freedom and opportunity than Arabs anywhere in the Middle East, they called me a traitor. After high school, I went to study electrical engineering at Technion, a leading Israeli university. During my first semester, heavy rocket fire from Gaza forced Israel to launch a counterattack. Not long after the war began, I witnessed a group of Arab Israeli students expressing their solidarity with Hamas, the Palestinian terror organization that controls Gaza and is committed to Israelis' violent destruction. Did these students not understand that those rockets could just as easily be aimed at them? Hamas didn't care who they killed as long as they landed inside the borders of Israel. Had my fellow Arab students forgotten that Israel had left Gaza a few years before? That there wasn't a single Israeli living there? That day, I dropped out of school to join the Israeli army, the IDF. A few months later, I was a soldier in the Israeli Air Force. After months of training, I was assigned to the Search and Rescue Helicopter Unit. Our job was to save lives. We never concerned ourselves with the identity of the people who needed our help. We rescued Syrian civilians wounded in their country's civil war, Palestinian children from Gaza requiring urgent medical care, and countless Israelis of every religious and ethnic background. A life, whether it is Muslim or Jewish, Palestinian or Israeli, is a life. On a base of 6,000 soldiers, I was the only Bedouin. But it didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was keeping Israel, our home, safe. We came from all parts of the country and from many parts of the world. We were every shade of skin color. Our shared goal created a deep bond. Today, I am a student at Haifa University. Half of the students are Arab. More than once, I have seen the Palestinian flag being waved at rally or protest on campus. In Israel, you can do this because whether you are a Jew or an Arab, you are free. What more do you need to know? I am Muhammad Kabia for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. Please help support PragerU with a donation.
The national anthem stands for freedom, even the freedom to do foolish things, like protesting the national anthem. But like my mama always said, just because you are free to do the wrong thing, it doesn't mean you should. Starting in 2016, some professional football players have refused to stand when the national anthem is played before a game. Some of them kneel, some of them sit on the bench, some of them raise their fist, and some don't even come out of the locker room. This was all started by San Francisco 49er quarterback Colin Kaepernick. His idea was to protest the alleged mistreatment of Black people by police and by America in general. As he put it, I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses Black people and people of color. Kaepernick no longer plays in the league because apparently NFL owners are racist against backup quarterbacks who don't throw well. But his protest lives on and has spread to college and high school athletes. Even elementary school kids have gotten into the act. I like football, and I sing the anthem publicly at events. This doesn't make me an expert, but I've got a problem with some things here. First, the protest is based on something that just isn't true. And second, even if it were true, the protest is misdirected and self-defeating. Let's start with problem one. Despite what we're told by Black Lives Matter and their media allies, the police are not engaged in a coordinated campaign to destroy the Black race. As Harvard professor Roland Fryer, who happens to be Black, and others have shown, there is no evidence of racial bias in police shootings. In any case, the thing that makes headlines, police shootings of unarmed Black men, is very rare. How rare? Statistics show that an unarmed Black man is more likely to be killed by lightning than a policeman. So if police are trying to persecute Black folks, they're doing a really bad job. Am I saying racism doesn't exist? Of course not. Am I saying racist cops don't exist? Of course not. But I would say this: Blacks have a lot more to fear from Black criminals than from the police. The police keep us safe, and they risk their lives every day doing it. That sounds like it's a lot more deserving of a thank you than a screw you. Now, problem 2. The protest is misdirected and self-defeating. The American flag and the national anthem are symbols that represent our country. Even if some police officers are racist jerks, it doesn't make sense to protest those particular jerks by demonstrating against the country as a whole. Martin Luther King Jr. protested discrimination against blacks on city buses by boycotting city buses. He never denigrated the flag or the anthem. In fact, he did the opposite. He argued that the people who oppress blacks are the ones denigrating the flag and what it stands for. And what does it stand for? Ironically, it's the protesters themselves who give us the answer. It stands for freedom. The fact that you can disrespect the anthem and the flag proves that you're free. Anyone who doesn't stand for the anthem would do themselves a favor if they studied some current events. They'd learn that oppressive countries don't allow anyone to publicly disrespect national symbols, much less earn millions of dollars while doing it. You won't see anyone sitting for their national anthem in North Korea or Iran. Well, you might, but that will be the last time you see them. Which brings me to my final point. In America, where you are free to sit or stand during the national anthem, sitting when you should be standing is more a statement about you than about America. And you don't come off too well. You come off, frankly, as ignorant and ungrateful. Ignorant about a country that works to correct its faults, and ungrateful for the opportunity and freedom that it offers all its citizens. For that, I'm standing. How about you? I'm Joy Villa for Prager University.
How many times have you heard someone say they want to make a better world? It is a noble sentiment, but very hard to achieve, right? Well, actually, it's quite easy. All we have to do is increase just one human trait. This trait is so powerful that it alone can make people happier without working on their happiness and make them better. And by better, I mean more generous, more honest, more kind, more everything good, without a single lesson in morality. So then, what is this one almost magical thing? Drum roll, please. It's gratitude. You can't be a happy person if you aren't grateful, and you can't be a good person if you aren't grateful. Almost everything good flows from gratitude, and almost everything bad flows from ingratitude. Let's begin with ingratitude. Here's a rule of life. Ingratitude guarantees unhappiness. It is as simple as that. There isn't an ungrateful, happy person on earth. And there isn't an ungrateful, good person on earth. There are two reasons. Reason one is victimhood. Ingratitude always leads to or comes from victimhood. Ungrateful people, by definition, think of themselves as victims. And perceiving oneself as a victim or perceiving oneself as a member of a victim group may be the single biggest reason people hurt other people, from hurtful comments to mass murder. People who think of themselves as victims tend to believe that because they've been hurt by others, they can hurt others. And the second reason ungrateful people aren't good people is that ingratitude is always accompanied by anger. The ungrateful are angry, and angry people lash out at others. If ingratitude makes people unhappy and mean, then gratitude must make people happy and kind. And so it does. Think of the times you have felt most grateful. Were they not always accompanied by a feeling of happiness? Weren't they also accompanied by a desire to be kinder to other people? The answer, of course, is yes. Grateful people aren't angry, and they don't see themselves as victims. The problem, however, and it's a big one, is that in America and much of the rest of the world, people are becoming less grateful. Why? Because people are constantly told that they are entitled to things they haven't earned, what are known as benefits or entitlements. And the more things that people think they should get, the less grateful they will be for whatever they do get. And the more angry and therefore unhappy they will be when they don't get them. Here are 2 rules of life. Rule number 1, the less you feel entitled to, the more gratitude you will feel for whatever you get, and the happier you will be. Rule number 2, the more you feel entitled to, the less happy you will be. That's why, for example, children who get whatever they want are usually less happy children. We have a word for such children, spoiled. And no one thinks of a spoiled child as a happy child, and certainly not a kind one. The more that you feel that life or society owes you, the angrier you will get, the less happy you will be. As a result, we are increasing the number of angry, unhappy, and selfish people. The other way we are making people unhappy, and even meaner, is by cultivating a sense of victimhood. People are constantly told that they are victims because of their upbringing, because of past prejudice against their group, because of material inequality, because they are female, and for many other reasons. Next time you want to assess any social policy, ask this question first. Will this policy increase or decrease gratitude among people? You will then know whether it is something that will bring more goodness and happiness to the world or less. If I were granted one wish, it would be that all people be grateful. Gratitude is the source of happiness and the source of goodness. And the more good people and the more happy people there are walking around, the happier and better our world will be. If you have a way of achieving such a world without increasing gratitude, let me know what it is. I'm Dennis Prager.
Hey, hope you enjoyed the video. Did you know PragerU is 100% fan-funded? We make videos for people like you because of the support of people like you.